Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Dana Seagulls, the very proud principal of Pebblebrook High School. And today I am your facilitator for this wonderful and amazing conversation and our Gathering of Champions virtual back to school summit. Can you believe it? The 2022-23 school year has already started. And I know it may have seemed like a long summer for parents, but I promise you, for educators, it was an abbreviated one. But nevertheless, we are back. The face of education has changed tremendously over the course of several years, but especially during the COVID years. The way education looks in classrooms, in homes, the way that our students learn, the way that our students are assessed, all of these things are changing because our students have changed. Yes, COVID has changed so many things in the workforce, so many things in industry, so many things in research and medicine. But the place where COVID has impacted us the most is education. Our students are different. And education, we've already faced a plethora of concerns as it relates to students advancing. We know that as educators, our students struggle with basic things like reading, math, and literacy. But the year or maybe 2 years that students were at home engaging through virtual learning really changed the face of education forever. And for years and years, we're going to have to deal with the outfall of that. Educators are scrambling now to create new constructs of learning. Educators are working more collaboratively than ever to see to it that our students close the gaps of learning that's been created with that year or maybe 2 years of virtual learning. But don't worry, our resolve is very strong. Part of this summit today is to provide you with the resources that you can do to help us in that journey. I want you to know that education is not a single effort between just the student and the teacher or the student and the school. More now than ever, parents, the community, and other stakeholders have to be involved and invested in helping our students get on track for education. And I will tell you this, education is a full-time job. It is. Things have changed so much. There's so many acronyms out there for education. Sometimes parents can't keep up with it all. But today, for this hour, we hope to give you some tools and some resources to help you in this journey. Now, this morning, we have amassed some amazing educators with years of experience ready and poised to have this pivotal conversation about how do we work collaboratively for the one single goal of student success. You'll hear from educators in elementary, middle, and high school. You'll hear from a school social worker. You'll hear from a professional whose focus is on students with exceptionalities. With students with exceptionalities, we're talking about students who receive special education services. So sit back, relax, get your pen out. We want you to take notes. In addition to that, if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the format that you are now watching us. We're going to be fielding those questions because we want to make sure that we are responsive. So with that being said, let's go ahead and introduce our panel. All right. We can have our panel on the screen at this time so that we can have them introduce themselves. All right, we'll start with Dr. Hosey.
Good morning, everyone out there in Facebook land and the internet. Thank you for having me on this morning, Dr. G. I really appreciate it. I am Dr. Ashley B. Hosey, the proud principal of Floyd Middle School on Floyd Road. I'm excited to be here. I'm an educator. This is my 14th year as a principal, my 26th year in education, and I've served students from kindergarten all the way to their senior year in high school. So I'm excited to be here this morning.
Yes, thank you. And I always have to say this about Dr. Hosey. He's a personal friend and mentor of mine. He gave me my first experience as an assistant principal in Cobb County School District, the only principal to have served in all levels as a principal, elementary, middle, and high school. So we're so happy that you're here. All right, the next professional who's going to be joining us today, they could come up on the screen. Hello, Miss Chen. If you could introduce yourself to everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kimberly Chin. I am a school social worker with the Cobb County School District. I serve the wonderful Pebblebrook High School. I also serve Lindley Middle School and Osco Elementary. I've had the pleasure of working with Pebblebrook for quite a few years, about 10 years now. I was previously a site coordinator for communities and schools, working with students with dropout prevention. And I've been in the social work field for 15 years and I'm loving it. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Chen. She's going to give you a wealth of experience about how to connect you with resources, parents that help you help your students be successful. Thank you for being here. Our next professional. We can have them on the screen now.
Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Watkins. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. My name is Sylvia Watkins, and I still can't believe I'm saying this. This is my 25th year in education. Yeah, I'm still at awe at that. I moved here to the Atlanta area almost 2 years ago. Prior to coming here, I was a classroom teacher and an instructional coach. Now I'm a fourth grade teacher in the DeKalb County School District at the Stone Mill Elementary School. So I look forward to being a part of this conversation because I feel that it is very much needed. So thank you, Dr. G, again for asking me to be a part.
Absolutely. Can't wait to hear. She's got that knowledge for those of you who have the babies in elementary school. That is not my forte. I want to tell you, I can't do it. You and Dr. Hosey can take that. So when I ask questions about that, I'm just going to be quiet because that is just not my area. Thank you so much for being here. All right. Our next professional who is joining us on our panel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sunise Carmichael. I am an educator in Cobb County at Loving Good Middle School. This is my 17th year. My first 13 years I spent teaching students with special needs and special education. And for this is starting my fourth year as a seventh grade math teacher. So super excited to be here. Just want to say, love being an educator and super excited to talk to you guys today.
Awesome. Miss Carmichael, we really got to give you a huge shout out. Seventh grade and math. I mean, yes for you.
Never a dull moment. Let me say that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And our last professional joining us, if we could bring her on the screen. If you could unmute.
Good morning. My name is Tanisa McDonald. I am a lead teacher of special education in Clayton County. I'm also a parent and resident of Cobb County. I am here to answer any questions around special education and students with exceptionalities. Thank you for inviting me to participate.
Awesome. Ms. McDonald has a wealth of experience in so many areas, especially working with our students with exceptionalities. So if you have questions about that, we're going to get to some of those questions throughout our presentation, but she will be the person that you will reach out to. So once again, for our format today, we're going to be discussing several areas. We're going to be talking about instruction, parental involvement, and behavior and social emotional learning. And this is just going to be a conversation amongst professionals. So for those of you who are joining us, please, again, feel free to ask questions of our panel because we are here to help you. So let's just kick this off. What do you think, professionals, and I think I'm going to start with Ms. McDonald. Ms. McDonald, when you think about, let's start off with instruction. So many things are changing and so many things have happened. What are some of the instructional strategies that are out there that teachers are using to engage learners that maybe our parents need to know about so that they can replicate at home?
The first thing I would like to say is that teachers trying to find that student's strength, working from that area of what they're already proficient with. And it's good for parents to be able to explain or help their child explain or advocate for themselves those things that they already are very strong at. are strong with, and then parent and the teachers can work with those students to build upon those skills in the classroom. We want to make sure our students have reading fluency skills. We want to make sure that they have their math fluency skills at the basic level, and then teachers will take those skills and find like what are their areas that they need the most assistance with, or the areas that they're deficient in, and then work upon those skills to make the student stronger in those areas.
Absolutely. So parents making sure that they know who their students are and knowing what their weaknesses are so that they can then supplement that. Absolutely. What do you think about that, Ms. Watkins, when you think about the elementary setting? What are some of those instructional strategies that teachers are using that parents need to know about or can replicate at home?
Sure. There are several things that classroom teachers are doing. One that popped in my mind was a concept known as gradual release. And that basically means the teacher will start off with introducing a skill, introducing a concept, modeling the skill, modeling the concept, and then over a period of time, allowing the student to practice the concept, allowing the student to work cooperatively in groups to practice the concept. And then ultimately, the student will be able to master the concept. So that's known as gradual release, because you start off with the teacher owning the skill and concept, but over a period of time, the students will own it. The students will be able to master it. And then it's another concept called synthesizing, where students are able to teach someone else. Students are able to teach another student that's struggling, or teach a friend that needs assistance. So that whole gradual release concept, I found in being in the classroom, it really helps. It takes time. It takes patience, especially when you're dealing with a brand new concept that students aren't aware of. But I do think that that gradual release concept, it really allows the students to ultimately take more ownership and more responsibility for their learning.
And I love that, because I think that's something that parents can do in any life skill situation, right?
Absolutely.
If you say, I want you to wash the dishes, go wash the dishes, right? But just because the student is looking at you washing the dishes doesn't mean that they understand how to wash dishes.
Absolutely.
Before I release you and trust you to wash my dishes appropriately, we're going to wash these dishes together, all right? And then after that, I will release you. So that whole concept of working with the student in that learning process is definitely something that a parent can replicate. What about you, Ms. Carmichael? Then Dr. Jose, I'll ask you to speak on that.
Just to piggyback off what Ms. Watkins said, in math, we do very similar instruction. We start with guided practice, where the students, along with the teacher, we're working the problems, the teacher is modeling the problems, so that the student can see the appropriate way, or how we expect them to work through the problem. After that, we will assign tiered assignments where, depending on the student's level, we will decide which type of assignment that student can then move on to, hoping to get all students to the mastery level. However, some students may take a little bit longer. Basic math skills, we've learned that during COVID has kind of shown some things that were already there that may have been masked. So now that we've gone through the COVID period, we know that a lot of students are missing basic skills. At home, parents can get flashcards to just work with their students at home. It will probably be surprising when you do flashcards with your students, maybe how much they do struggle with some basic skills. So working with those things at home with your students are definitely going to make sure that when they get to the classroom, they can show more mastery, so that the teacher can extend them a little bit more. They can have more enriched assignments. Lots of online platforms that they can log on to. We use quite a few in my class. We use Dreambox. Those are platforms that will adjust to the student's ability. If the student is starting a little bit low, it will adjust down and gradually strengthen them so that they can get to the mastery level. So lots of things that parents can do at home. My personal advice is just sit down sometimes and work with your student. That way you get to see what we see on a daily basis. And you get to understand how you can better communicate with the teachers and see what the teachers can give you maybe at home to work with your student as well.
Awesome. Somebody put in the comments, math, sheesh. Because, when you say math, it's like, oh, my mind begins to go. And, because the math is just so different in the way that it's taught. And we talk about literacy. Sometimes we only think about reading and writing, but math literacy is a whole different concept, right? Especially the way our new assessments are written. So great information. And as you said, no cards in the card. Every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. Have students, if they're at the store, and I know we don't use cash as much anymore, but maybe even if you go out to restaurants and said, what should my tip be?
Absolutely.
Or reverse it and say, I'm going to give $10 to this person. Yes. $10 is what percent of this bill?
Absolutely. So real world application.
Yes. Definitely. Dr. Hosey, what about you? What do you see, or what have you seen in your areas of leadership in terms of how the instructional things that are happening at school and how we can enforce those at home?
And I agree with the math. First of all, I do that when we go to the grocery store. My kids help me. Hey, I got 100 people to buy for. How many of these buns do I need? So they help me with that. Those applications work. One of the most underestimated things is asking your student to explain their thinking. A lot of times we talk about memorization of facts and statistics, but across all board and across all subject areas, can your child explain how they're thinking about an answer? Because it allows in the classroom for a teacher to understand, okay, they get the concept, but they're missing this part. Giving open responses to your students. I work with this with my daughter. She's very quiet. And asking her, well, what do you think about this? And why did you do that? Or why did you choose to do this particular thing? And then she goes through her process and she tells me. But to be able to do that helps a teacher at school. One student can advocate for themselves because you're teaching them how to verbalize what's in their mind, but also it teaches them how to think through that critical thinking piece that we all want students to be able to do. Because I grew up just spitting out timetables and facts and those things. But can you explain to me what you were thinking in this word problem, or why do you feel this historical figure did this, or things such as that? Because it opens up your student to be able to express themselves, and it allows you to understand how your child thinks. And it's not like we think that they think. They don't mirror us all the time, because sometimes you get frustrated with your child at home. Like, why'd you do that? Well, when you allow them to explain, you're like, oh, I never taught you how to do this part. Or that makes sense to me coming from your 7th grade self or your 9th grade, because you don't have the experience I have. So it allows your child to go to school and do the same thing. But because a lot of times we old school children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Do it because I said do it, or because I said so. But allowing kids the opportunity to explain why they did something and to think through a process goes across all subject areas.
Awesome. Thank you. Great advice. We've said this a couple of times. I'm going to start this question with Ms. Chin. The professionals here have talked about how things have changed and parental involvement. But I know with you being a school social worker, and you also had experience working within community schools, parents are under a lot of stress. Parents are being challenged sort of with everything. What are some of the concerns that you have heard from parents in terms of parenting during post-COVID, or I shouldn't even say post-COVID, but because we're still in the midst of it. But what are some of the challenges that you've seen with parenting? And can you suggest any resources for learning that our parents have access to that they may not even realize?
So, of course, yes, we are still in a pandemic. And it's just unfortunate because it's definitely changed a lot as far as people's survival. Everything's going up financially, but our incomes are not the same. They're going down, or people are losing jobs. So right now, a lot of challenges families are facing are just survival. So not that they don't think education is important, but I'm trying to live. I'm trying to keep food on the table, a roof over my family's head, my kids' clothes. How am I going to get this done? So education kind of, again, while it's not saying that it's not important, it just kind of moves down the list, when we're trying to be in a home and I'm trying to survive for my kids and keep things together. So those are a lot of things that I'm hearing from parents. And, when you have things going on at home, it trickles down into the school. So kids could be acting out. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm trying to keep together at home. They're acting out at school. The grades are going down. What can I do? So I'm hearing a lot of that. So it's just a lot of that, people are in survival mode and just trying to figure out how can I keep it together at home and make sure my children are getting what they need at school. So, I definitely just say that parents should just utilize their resources. So a lot of people don't know that they can come to the school to figure out learning resources. They don't know that, you can go to your public library. Nobody's saying you got to spend a lot of money on learning tools and gadgets and gizmos, but you can go to the public library. If you have a library card, they have a lot of learning tools and curriculums you can use. Check out a book, check out different programs for your child that you can do at home. And again, it's free because if you have a library card, it's free. You can log on through the library for different means and avenues for learning. So definitely just letting people know that there are things in the community that they can use. And again, use your resources at the school through your teachers. So again, I know a lot of teachers use a lot of different free apps and, everybody's on their phone. So talking to those teachers and those administrators, like, hey, what can I use? Talking to your school counselors and your school social worker. We made no apps for social emotional learning. So just utilizing your resources and really talking to people, like give me the free 99, whatever I can do at home and help my child, be as successful as possible.
That's awesome. And that's right. You've got to stay in contact with your school. Every school is going to have resources that they've identified that works within that school's model, right? And so contact your school. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Don't be afraid to engage with your teachers and ask for support. So parents, don't forget that. So I want to turn this question to Ms. McDonald and Ms. Carmichael, because you have a background in working with our students with special needs. One of the things that I know a lot of parents saw or realized during the pandemic was some learning gaps. Dr. Hosey talked about the fact that, parenting was different. Pre-pandemic, kids kind of went to school. You did what you were supposed to do. You let the school handle that. But when things shifted and students were at home and parents had an opportunity to see and hear their students talk, hear their students respond in the presence of other students, maybe they noticed learning gaps that seemed more extreme. It wasn't just it's the pandemic. There was some specific, like, wait a minute, my student doesn't sound like the other students. My student is not processing like the other students. And that's a real thing. I mean, identifying a student who may have some academic struggles doesn't always happen in elementary. It can happen late elementary, middle. We find them even in high school. So if you're a parent and you're starting to see or hear about some real concerns with your child and their academic progress, what are some of the steps that they need to take as a parent to help with getting support or identifying what maybe the next resources for their students?
So for us at our school, on our school level, the first thing you would do is contact the school and you want to get in touch with our SST chair so that they can start monitoring and do progress monitoring and offer interventions for the student in class. If they find that those interventions aren't working and we want to take a next step to evaluate that student to see if they do qualify for special ed services, then that's one of those things that we would do at that time. We did have an influx of requests last year coming back into the school building where parents noticed that there were a lot of learning deficits that their students were experiencing. And so we went through the necessary steps to try to provide interventions for those students. And then when we saw that those interventions weren't necessarily working, we did provide evaluations for those students. And then some of those students did move into the special ed program.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms. Carmichael, I know you've worked in special education. Anything that you can add as well to that process? If I'm starting to see some challenges with my students, what can I do?
Well, for students who may already have an IEP or otherwise not, for the ones who have an IEP, definitely I would encourage parents to reach out to the student's case manager. Oftentimes, the case managers will have a wealth of resources that can be shared with the parent. They can also collect additional data within the classroom if they see, the student needs something that they may not have had or may not have needed previously. So I would say your first point of contact would certainly be your student's case manager. And again, as Ms. McDonald said, for the ones who may not have an IEP already, definitely contact the school. They will put you in touch with the lead teacher or whoever the supervisor is there to possibly put your child on the track to be identified as having some sort of learning disability or something. So definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I also wanted to add, if a parent at any point sees that there's a change in their students' academic progress, even in their behavior, they can call an IEP meeting at any time to sit down with that team to discuss those changes and try to discover or figure out what are the next best steps for that student.
Absolutely. That's important. And that parents, you have to stay on top of that. Having conversations with your students, sitting beside them as they are working, you'll start to hear, things and go, wait a minute, something's not progressing the way that it needs to. So you've got to advocate. Very, very important. Awesome. So let me ask you this question, because this has come up a lot. And Dr. Hosey, I'm going to start with you with this question, because I think that this is a perfect merging of the school and the parent. PBIS, positive behavior interventions and support, right? So long gone are the days where you could just say to the student, you're going to do what I said and get it done. Yeah, okay. Long gone are the days where you could just kind of put it out there and the student's just going to act the way you want them to. And I get it as parents, right? I get it. I promise you, I have 3 and we have children, and, so you have that parenting in you that says, because I'm the adult, this is what you're going to do. But schools realize that we are full of adults and full of kids who outnumber us. And sometimes that doesn't work. And so we have to find ways to motivate our students. And there's nothing wrong with motivation. As teachers, right? We love to be motivated. I know that you have a tremendous PBIS program at Floyd, and you've done PBIS even at the high school level when I worked with you as an assistant principal. Could you talk a little bit about what PBIS is? Because I know that there are some parents here who may have heard it. They may have heard it in a different form, but could you talk about what it is and maybe how parents can use the reward system or something of that nature to help encourage their kids? And after that, Ms. Watkins, I'm going to ask you to speak of that, because I know that those kinds of support systems are really prevalent in elementary.
Well, Dr. Giles, you nailed it. Everybody wants motivation. We get a check at work. Some industries, you get bonuses when you make certain achievements on your job. You get recognition for doing things on your job. So the same is with students. Let's just face the fact that all students don't wake up like, man, I'm ready to go to school today. It's going to be great, and that's going to be awesome. So what PBIS is not in lieu of discipline. It is to recognize the good things that students are doing in your school because you want them to increase. At Florida, we've looked at things such as recognizing students earn points for doing the things, being prepared. Okay, that sounds simple. It's not sometimes. Coming to school, you earn points. And most schools who use PBIS have some point system or currency that students can earn, and then they can turn those points in for prizes, incentives. It could be a free air Friday where they get to go outside for a few minutes. Middle school, there is no recess. When we were at elementary, it was the kids who collected the most tokens. They got an hour little dance party in the cafeteria where I just turned on music and they just ran around the cafeteria, and then we sent them back to class. Or it could be turning in for a store where they go to get to buy some little item that you wonder where all that little junk came from. They bring home, they bought it at the PBI stores because they earned those points. One of the things schools try to do with PBIS points is when kids earn them, they're their points. You don't lose them because you made a mistake. You don't lose them because of discipline. You earn that for doing the things that we ask you to do. So at home, it's a great segue of being able to do the same thing at home. I know we're adults. Mama said, do it, you better do it. And sometimes that's the way it happens. But chores are a negotiation of PBIS. You do your chores. We go to Applebee's on Friday night, or you want to go to the mall or burn mama's and daddy's gas. Well, hey, these are things I need you to do during the week to make sure those things are done. Or when they get that report card, you bring me a report card with whatever level your student is. If it's all A's and B's, then hey, we're gonna so many A's and B's. Either it's monetary or we're gonna do something as a family together when everybody earns their PBIS points. Ladies, you can put your husband on PBIS points too, to make the family work well. They have everybody doing it. But it's just a reinforcing of getting those students to repeat those good behaviors, because as they repeat the good behaviors, the bad behaviors decrease.
Absolutely. And that's a key right there. You're focusing on good behavior.
Yes.
So many times in our raising of our children, we only talk to them about the negative, what you didn't do, what you didn't do. You've got to praise the positive that you see. You may have said, sweep the kitchen, right? And maybe they missed a spot or they didn't do it thoroughly. Start off with saying, thank you for sweeping. Now, to do it at the level, this is what I need you to do. But start with praise. Start with something positive. What about you, Ms. Watkins? Because again, I know that a lot of what PBIS is started in elementary. What's your belief about how PBIS works in schools and how we can translate that at home? And y'all going to see me go off the screen for a second because my computer's about to die. So go ahead and share.
Sure. I have found that an effective PBIS program works when the students take ownership of the program, when students take ownership of their behavior, when students take ownership of the outcome. For example, I have done this every single year at the beginning of the school year. Which is I will have a whole group discussion or a class meeting with my classes, and we will format together using an anchor chart. What are the classroom expectations we're going to follow? And if we follow these classroom expectations, what are the rewards of following those expectations? Now, of course, especially at the beginning of the school year, it may take some kids a little bit to, become a part of the conversation. But what I have seen over and over and over and over again is when kids are part of the process of creating those expectations, they will work entirely in order to get those rewards. So I would highly suggest to any classroom teachers that are watching, have those conversations with your kids. And for some teachers, some old school teachers, that may be a little tough because you're used to creating that anchor chart, putting it on the board. Look, stay in your seat. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I get it. I do. But in the world and in the times that we're living in, when students take ownership, when students are a part of the decision-making process of a classroom, that will take your classroom culture to a whole nother level. Same thing just at home. Same thing at home. I have conversations with parents every single school year about using that same concept at home. I remember one student I had maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, he was a smart little cookie, but he would work at school. But when he got home, he was just on 10. So what I helped the mom to do was create an incentive chart at home. And this was like a first grader. So I did a Zoom session with the mom, the dad, the babysitter, and the child. So all stakeholders are a part of this process. And he was able to see that everybody is on the same page. So when you're with dad, you're taking your incentive chart with you. When you're with the babysitter, you're taking your incentive chart with you. So what that tells the child or the student is, no matter where you go, you're going to be held accountable for your actions. At the same time, no matter where you go, there are prizes. There is the Applebee's night, there is the Dollar Tree night, there is the movie, the Saturday, whatever incentive you all come up with. But when kids are a part of the process, then not only will they take more responsibility over a period of time, you'll start to see that they want to do the right thing. And, do we necessarily want kids to do the right thing just to get something? Well, of course not. But ultimately, again, over a period of time, those behaviors, them being able to self-monitor, will just become a part of their daily school ritual. It'll become a part of just who they are as kids. So those are just some things that I've done.
That's incredible information. That's absolutely right. And Ms. Chin, I'm going to ask you to jump in on this, because as both working as a school social worker in communities in schools, you've worked separately and independently with students and trying to get them to graduate, trying to get them to come to school and have good attendance so that they can get that driver's license. And even though you don't call it PBIS, you have reward systems so can you talk a little bit about how that PBIS translate for older kids and some of the things that you have done, or some of the things that school social workers do, or maybe even communities and schools for schools that have that program, what they have done to incentivize students to help them to stay on track?
So, especially for those older kids, because, once they hit a certain age, they're kind of like, I'm grown. And, they don't have grown money, but they think they're grown. But it's okay. We're all there. But yeah, I have a lot of students who may say, Shin, I'm looking for a job. I'm ready to get out of here. I want to do this. I want to do that. And, I have to hold them accountable and say, look, I understand you want to work. I understand that you're saying you want to do X, Y, Z, but look at what you're doing in school. What's your behavior looking like? What's your grades looking like? Okay, so think about it like this. You want a job, but you're not coming to school every day. How do you think that's going to work when you try to show up at somebody's job saying, I want to be here, but you're not even here in school? You're not showing up for the things you're supposed to be doing. So a lot of times you do have to kind of hold them accountable and say, look at your behavior. What are you doing? All right, we got that, but what can we do better? How can you shift this to make it work better for you? And, ultimately where you're, coming out on the positive end of things. So a lot of times I'll say, what I need you to do is, if for example, if they say like, I'm trying to graduate, okay, let's look at your grades. How about you go to your teacher and say, hey, I'm working with Ms. Chin. I want to do better. What can I do to help my grade come up? And again, the teacher may have an incentive. It may say, all right, I just need you to do some extra credit work to help you get your grade up. Okay, you got to do it, right? So that may be that incentive. Like, I want to get my grade up so I can, I don't know, make it to prom. Because of course you're working, you're trying to, like, I don't know, whatever your incentive is for those older ones. You gotta find something that they want to do to help them kind of figure out what they want to do better. So, but again, also holding them accountable, especially with the older ones, you really have to hold them accountable for what are you doing? Because you're putting yourself in a situation that's not helping your situation. So that's a lot of that has to happen, especially with my older babies. And just letting them understand, like, look, man, you can't, half the battle is showing up. Half the battle is doing what you need to do. So you're not going to get this if you're not showing up or if you're not doing your part. And eventually it kind of clicks like, oh, I got to do A before I can get to B.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, absolutely. Conversations with our older kids. It's what do you want and how will you get there? Right? If you desire to graduate, you got to pass these classes. So let's do little by little. All right. So every 2 weeks, come to me. Let's see how those grades are. Right. And sometimes the incentive is just having a conversation with Ms. Chin, just being pulled out of the classroom to have a one-on-one conversation with an accountability partner. That's really important. Student buy-in, all of that it helps the older kids because you're also building the confidence in them for self-advocacy.
Yes.
And we all know that self-advocacy is a very important skill that students need to have to become productive adults, to be able to say what your needs are, to be able to articulate that, and then work toward that. It's very, very important skill. So great information. All right,
Dr. G, I just wanted to add that to that
yes, please.
self-advocacy. We can start teaching our children as early as elementary and middle school how to advocate for themselves. I don't know if I got that across earlier when I was saying it at the very beginning, but we can teach our students to go into that class and say, hey, I need help with XYZ. They can, we can tell them, hey, when you go to class, let your teacher know that you struggle with such and such, so that they can start advocating for themselves even in elementary and middle school, so that they can explain to teachers, I have a deficit in this, or I need extra assistance with a certain concept, so that they can start that advocacy for themselves even in those earlier grade levels.
I love that. And
I
oh, go ahead, Ms. Carmichael, please.
I totally agree with the self-advocacy skill, because in middle school, with students coming from elementary school, they're used to being in one class with one teacher pretty much the whole day. So when they get to middle school and they've got 6 different teachers, and some classes they have 2 teachers, students struggle to self-advocate. And I think that's something that we definitely have to teach our students, because the parents aren't going to be able to, talk to the teacher every minute of the day like they did maybe in elementary school where it's just one teacher. So you definitely want to focus on teaching your student to self-advocate, ask the questions. You could definitely do the positive behavior. Have them to go to school, and whatever the question is or the situation is, have them to talk to the teacher. If they've done it, then maybe they get an incentive when they get home. They get something, because you want to teach them that, because when they get to high school, it's going to be so important that they know how to self-advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Spot on. This is a great segue, that self-advocacy piece, into a buzzword. I shouldn't say a buzzword. Let me take that back, because it's not buzzword. It's a real concern. It's a real situation, but I think the word itself is overused, and that is bullying, right? So as educators, we're going to take a deep breath. And parents, we're going to ask you to listen to us as we go through this. Let's start off with an obvious statement. Conflict between students and among students is a normal adolescent developmental necessity. Let that linger. Once again, conflict between students, among students, is a normal developmental adolescent necessity. You see it as a baby. Baby has a toy, another baby takes that toy. Nobody tells that baby to snatch the toy back. That's not something you ever teach. Intuitively, the baby's going to snatch it back because they feel ownership to it. So conflict, disagreement, is an intuitive experience. Responding to it is an intuitive developmental necessity. The training of how we help students with that is where we come in. When we talk about advocacy, right, we want our students to be able to articulate when they are feeling emotions, when they're feeling like someone is taking advantage of them emotionally, when they feel like they can't handle it. We've used the word bully to sometimes mask normal behavior. So I'm going to be real careful as I walk around this, parents, because I want you to hear me. Educators, you all know bullying happens, right? We all know that.
Yes.
But we also know that there are things that are just going to happen because of students' age, friendships, social media. I could go on and on. How do we? It's a hard question. Listen. I'm going to ask this question and not answer it because I'm interested to hear what you have to say. How do we, or how do you, help parents to discriminate between the two? Hey, this is adolescent behavior. It may be inappropriate. It may not feel well, but we got to work through Johnny's response. We got to work through on both sides. The bully, I shouldn't say, I don't want to use the word, the aggressor and the person receiving the aggression. How do we help both sets of parents? What is that fine line between that and bullying? And I know that there is a formal definition. There is a formal definition. But if you read the definition, parents will still say, all of that is what happened to my child. And you're like, oh, no, it's not really. So, Dr. Hosey, I think you're anxious to answer this question.
Well, as you're saying that,
elementary, middle, and high school, I know that you have.
Well, you framed it correctly, Dr. G.
Yeah.
There are conflicts that are going to happen. I'm already preparing. My daughter is going to middle school for the first time. I know it's going to happen. And so I'm already preparing. The first thing that parents can do with any child at any level is keep the voice and communication open with your child. A lot of the shock comes when you haven't really asked the child how anything's going and things have been happening. And then the first time you hear about it, you're like, whoa, what just happened? Voice is important and allowing your child to tell you what's going on and you having conversations and talking them through that conflict resolution because things are going to happen. I had a conversation with my daughter about the school bus. Everybody knows middle school buses are horrible experiences sometimes. But teaching her, when this happens, I need you to know, there's a camera on the bus and there's a microphone. And if this happens, but nothing's happened yet, but talking through those scenarios and understanding what your child is feeling, and then stepping back from parents, because as adults, we have our understanding of now that we're grown, this is what how we're going to handle. But you didn't handle it that way when you were their age as well. Listening to their feelings are so important. But one thing parents have to notice is that one incident is maybe a one-off. It may happen one time. That's it. You're not going to know unless you talk to your child. But when you start to see a pattern, that's when it becomes something of very, very concern. If it happened one time, no one had any physical altercation. It was something said. Okay, let's talk through this as my child. But if you're noticing a pattern that is happening every day, every other week, it's the same child, same situation, then that's concerning that you intervene and have a conversation with your child and with the school as well, because the school will not know if you do not tell us. Let me say that again. The school is not omniscient and will not know if you don't tell us, because when does most incidents of students being mean to each other happen? Outside of adult supervision. Mm-hmm. We don't have your child's social media account. We don't follow your child around the neighborhood. So that communication with the school is so important. And the other thing is to understand is that every child is somebody's child. Okay, that as a parent, you have to understand that, that child may not be raised the way you think they should be raised, but it's still someone else's child. So wanting the law to get involved at the first drop that raindrop that fell, everybody got to go to jail. Okay, that may not be where we want to start. We want to start down with the understanding and giving the administration at your school an opportunity to find the resolve. It may be going to the counselor and having a counselor talk and get more in depth with the feelings and what's going on. It may be the administrator has to get involved, but being patient. But the number one thing is talking to your child and keeping that communication open, not just when something's bad, but so they feel they can come to you and tell you how they are feeling and then operating accordingly. I could talk about this all day, but I'm
Yeah, I
preparing
know.
I know
myself
you could.
because I
I
have
know
a
you
very
could.
sensitive sixth grader, and I know she's quiet. So we started having these conversations, and I'm noticing. So and when she's just talking, I just listen. So I ask how you're feeling about this, but I always give her scenarios of how, if this happens, when you're leaving the bus stop, if this happens, this is what you need to do. If this is what you need to do. So she's prepared for it. Let me
Awesome.
stop. Yeah.
Awesome. Miss McDonald, I know you could do this. Donald, you put in a key phrase for me. You said conflict resolution in our little private chat that you all can't see here. Talk to me about that, because that goes back to that conflict. I mean, that goes back to that self-advocacy piece. Woo! Talk to me about conflict resolution. Talk to our parents.
So what we do, even in I my background is within special ed is also with behaviors, students that have social emotional behaviors. So what we try to teach is put them with different scenarios and try to give them those modeling experience so that they can understand how to resolve conflict, even if they find themselves on the opposite end of that conflict. If they feel like they are being quote unquote bullied, or if they find a situation where they could easily be deemed the bullier, how do you get yourself out of a situation? And we're trying to introduce more conflict resolution with our students because, like you said, that's a natural process. That's growing pains. You're not going to get along with everybody. You're not going to have a kumbaya with every single person. But if you find yourself in a situation where something is not going the way you feel like it should, or something that's not progressing in a positive way, how can we solve this problem without it escalating to a fight or escalating to an exchange of negative words? So let's figure out how to introduce conflict resolution into our everyday teaching of behaviors so that our students will know how to appropriately respond when they have a situation come up.
I love it. That role modeling piece. Yeah. And because it's going to be a new experience. And sometimes you doing it with the role modeling is the first time that they'll see it. But it may awaken something. Well, I don't know what I'd do with that. So you gotta put it in their mind. It may not happen, but if it does, this is what you need to do. Awesome. Miss Watkins, you talk to us a little bit about what you believe is a good way to help our students with situations that they find themselves in where they disagree with others.
Sure. Oh gosh, I could talk about this forever. The one thing I want to speak to very quickly is to parents, because time and time again, I have recognized that many times students respond to situations, students handle situations based on how they saw someone else handle situations, someone influential in their lives, whether it was a parent, a grandparent, a guardian, whatever. Because many times when students have these conflicts, I hear it all the time. Well, my mama said if somebody did this, and the third, then I could do this, and the third. Or my daddy said. So I think it's important for parents to be mindful. And I'm saying this lightly because raising kids today is not easy. So I get it. But I just think it's very important for parents to remember that your children model everything you do. Your children watch how you talk, how you communicate, how you handle conflicts. And if we're not careful, what our children see is what you will end up seeing as educators at school. So the other thing I wanted to say, when I have those kind of conflicts with students, and my classes know I do a lot of talking. We have a lot of conversations. And my classes know as long as we're respectful, let's talk about it. What did student A do? What did student B do? Then I'll ask the class, well, what do you think student A should have done? Or what do you think student B should have done? Because again, going back to what we mentioned before, kids learn from each other. And I think it's just important that we allow kids to have those safe spaces, to have those kind of conversations so they can learn from each other. And then the last thing, I think it's just important for us to realize this is an ongoing conversation. This is not, let's talk about it for 5 minutes and then we got to go to lunch. These conversations have to almost be a part of your classroom culture. So kids will know, yes, I will allow you to express yourself. Yes, there is accountability, but ultimately you are responsible for your behavior.
Good stuff. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'd like to. As each of you have said, conflict is normal, especially in middle school. It's kind of a daily practice almost. But at my school, we also go a step further and we do restorative practices. Because what parents don't understand is there may be a conflict that takes place, but at some point those kids have to be reintegrated together. They're still going to have class together. They're still going to see each other in the hallway. Mm-hmm. So having a restorative practice where sometimes we invite the parents in, but the students can sit down, because oftentimes it's a miscommunication. It's not a real conflict. It's like, you said something, I thought you meant this, and now we have a conflict. So sometimes just looking at how can we restore the students is major. And sometimes putting the parents into that so the parents can actually hear both sides. Because oftentimes as parents, when our students come home, all we know is what our students have said. But sometimes hearing the other perspective, it's like, oh, wow, well, that was probably blown out of proportion when, as an adult, we get to see it from a different lens. So sometimes just wanting to look at it from the other perspective sometimes helps to minimize conflicts.
Awesome. Dr. Hose, you had something else to add?
And just one thing, like Ms. Carmichael was saying, that one thing we've got to, as parents, be open to the fact that we can break some generational curses. Just because we were taught some way of doing things does not mean that there's not a better way, and we can hold our children to do better than we have ever done. The conflict resolution piece and the restorative practice, that's something that wasn't in our generation. That was not there. And just because, I had to say it, all my life I had to fight. I fought them. Your child doesn't have to fight. Your child does not have to solve conflicts the way that you've always solved them in your family, because you want your child to always be able to do better than, when you know better, you do better. And we're in 2022. We should know better than what we used to do, and allow our children the opportunity to learn those skills and to progress and break those circles, break those curses, and move forward.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
And also that there are consequences that come with our action. So we have to make sure that our students know that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Social media should not be parenting your child. A music artist should not be parenting your child. TikTok should not be. Yeah. So, guess what, everybody? Our time is over. Just that quick. I know it was great. It's been tremendous, but I want to leave with every one of you giving one piece of information. Something positive, something encouraging, or maybe something that you didn't get a chance to share with our parents or our students who are watching. And can I just say this before we go? I want to give a shout out to anybody who's watching, who is a grandmother or an aunt or an extended family member who is raising a child that you didn't birth. I want to say that because there's a special grace. You know what I mean? We have lots of home structures that are different, and we have lots of grandparents now who are raising their their grandchildren, and that generational gap can be very, very different and challenging, and aunts and uncles are who are trying to keep kids in the family. I want to celebrate you and tell you thank you so much um, for being willing to parent and being willing to be that piece for that child. I think that's huge. So I want to say that. But anyway, we're going to close out because our time is over. And I'm telling you, get a bunch of educators together and we'll talk all day long because these are all things that we love to talk about. So, Ms. Chin, I'm going to start with you. I'll just kind of go around, but thank you all for attending today. I'm going to give my closing remarks in a minute, but Ms. Chin, any last bits of information or words of encouragement you'd like to share with those who are watching?
Yes, I just want everybody to know we have amazing children, parents, school staff, administrators, teachers, everybody. Like all of you are amazing. We are all in this together. We're doing the best we can. So don't think that what you're not doing is not enough or doing too much. Like we literally are all trying to hang in this together. So just know that you all are awesome. It's going to take all of us to move through this world, through this life. So just know that parents, grandparents, aunts, raising children. I don't have any kids because it's hard raising me, but know that you are supported, and just communicate. Let folks know what's going on before it hits, that point of no return. So let people know what's going on. You have resources, you have people here to support you, and just know that we're going to be all right.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Chin. Ms. Watkins, can you share your words for our families?
Sure. It takes a village to raise a child. The village consists of every stakeholder who touches that child: the teacher, the administrator, the counselor, the social worker, the mom, the dad, the grandma, the auntie, the babysitter, the bus driver, the cafeteria workers. It takes everybody doing their part. And I think that if we as stakeholders take responsibility for whatever our part is, if our part is making sure they get to school on time, then do that. If your part is making sure they go to bed on time, do that. If your part is making sure that if they need more shoes, you get them, whatever your part is, do it to the best of your ability. And when you are able to do that, and others are able to do that, everybody that touches that child, I think that is what will cause students to be successful. And if we can learn that concept, I just think we're setting our students up not only to have a future, but to soar. So
incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Carmichael.
From my perspective, if I had to sum it all up, communication would be the key word for me. Communicate with your student on a daily basis. Communicate with your student's teacher, the administrators. As Ms. Watkins says, it does take a village. And be okay with asking for help. As parents, we don't expect that you are going to know everything. That's why we're here. We're here to help you. So definitely be okay with reaching out and asking for help.
Awesome. Thank you. Ms. McDonald, what are your words of encouragement for our stakeholders today?
As a representative for students with exceptionalities, I just want to encourage parents to make sure that they are keeping up with their students' progress monitoring, their goals and objectives. Make sure that they are seeing progress on those items. Make sure that they're that communication piece with the case managers, that they have an open line of communication with them so that they can know how their student is progressing with the IEP. For them to just understand that their child's educational journey is unfolding, that it is a work in progress. If they need to come back to the table to amend anything, that is definitely an option for them, and for them to definitely use that option. Choose to advocate for their child when needed, and most importantly, always keep the child's needs at the forefront of any decision that is being made at the IEP table. Look at data to drive the decisions that are concerning their student, and always keep what's in the best interest of the child at the heart of every decision that's made.
Incredible words. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And finally, Dr. Hosey.
To all the students and to the parents who are listening, as you go through this school year, I just need you to know that it's okay that if you have gaps. It's going to be okay if you have deficits. It's going to be okay if you fail. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to be stuck. It's just not okay to stay that way. There are so many people here to help you. There's so many people who can guide you through your issues. Just reach out and ask for help. Doing difficult things does not mean that you have to do them by yourself. There are people that want to help you and that want to guide you. You can email me. I'll help you. Even if I'm not your principal, I'm the people's principal. I'll be your principal. So you can reach out to me and we'll help guide you. There's help that's available. All you have to do is ask. Do not suffer by yourself. Do not be down on yourself because you don't know those acronyms. Find someone to help you, guide you through those things, because we've all been there. And we want your child to be successful. And we want you and your family to be successful. So I'm on Floyd Road. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. Go to our website. You can email me, and I'm there to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching, if you could just type in the chat, great job. Give these professionals some love for sharing their expertise with us today. Just some final remarks that I would like to say to you. We are going to, first of all, we want to let you know that we are here for you. You heard our passion. You heard our commitment. You heard our resolve. Many of us have multiple years of experience, advanced degrees and certifications to prepare us to do the job that we've been called to do. And so we are open and available for those of you who are part of Gathering of Champions. A lot of these professionals are right here in. So after church, before church, please feel free, and I guess I'm speaking for them all when I say this, please feel free to approach them and ask them questions if you have concern. You heard Dr. Hosey say he's the people's principal. So if your principal's not acting right, y'all call Dr. Hosey. Y'all do that. But please do follow him on social media because he has a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience at every level. And of course, Ms. Chin is our school social worker, but she has access to resources in multiple places. So we are here to support you. Someone made a comment and asked about the opportunity for us to do this more often. And I think that all of us would agree that this is something that we need to look into and establishing some type of schedule so that we can come together a little bit more regularly to provide you with resources, to check on you, to make sure we fill in the gaps of this educational jargon that's out there, because we want to make sure that you are well informed. And so we will start that process of looking at a schedule that may work so that we can continue to be an asset to our community. As all of these professionals have said today, we want you to continue to be involved and engage in the educational process of your students. I love what Ms. Watkins said because she referenced everybody is needed. She talked about the bus drivers, and I would add in cafeteria, the janitors, every single person who is a part of the school structure. We are all needed to support the success of our students. But the most important piece is that home parent piece. You have no idea what your influence does positively or negatively to the construct of a student's day. No longer parents can we sit back and allow our students to go through this process alone. We have to, if we're going to ensure the future of our students, we have to be collaborative, we have to be involved, and we have to be invested, not only in what's happening with our students when they're on campus, but with their social media and with their learning. I want you to start this week. Ms. Watkins talked about that anchor chart. Create an anchor chart for yourself as a parent. Give yourself some PBIS and say, I'm going to get this extra cup of coffee if I do these things with my family and my children. It may seem a little silly, but whatever you need to do to become more involved and more invested in your child's educative future, then that's what you need to do. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. On behalf of our bishop, Bishop Brian Keith Hodges, the ministerial staff, and the members of Gathering of Champions, we say thank you. Thank you for joining us. And to every single one of you, have an exceptional 22-23 school year. God bless.